Former F-14 Tomcat pilot and Top Gun graduate Rear Admiral Nasty Manazir has been on the channel a few times before. I recently sat down with him for an extended conversation about his entire career, which included his time as the Air Wing Landing Signal Officer. And during Nasty's time as CAG LSO, he had one particularly harrowing day that involved an A-6 Intruder. So you leave the RAG, you're going back to be CAG LSO. We've talked about LSOs a number of times on the channel. Our good friend Hoser Miller did an episode about LSOs, and you had one wave in particular that I've done this footage in my mishap compilation, where an A-6 bombardier navigator, the right-seater, partially ejected. Talk to us about that day.
August of 1991, just east of Singapore. Hot, muggy. It was about 5 p.m. in the afternoon. We had just got done recovering airplanes, and we're in the in-between recoveries. I was Air Wing LSO for CAG 11, senior guy on the ship, landing signal officer. All the way up forward, we had done our ready room debriefs all the way through for that recovery. I'm all the way up forward, getting a glass of bug juice and peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Go ahead, 515. 515, my balloon is partially ejected. I'm going to need an emergency pull forward.
What's your posit?
I'm about 7 miles behind the ship.
Come on in.
Roger that.
All of a sudden over the 1MC, emergency pull forward, CAG paddles to the platform. And, you know, you'd hear CAG paddles to the platform on the 1MC, but typically emergency pull forward was on the 5MC up on the flight deck. So a little bit unique. So I put the glass down, go out right over the port side bow, come out way up forward, toss the sandwich overboard, and I go kind of trotting back. The bosun meets me at the forewire of Abraham Lincoln. Ship's in a huge turn. We're leaning over to starboard. It's in a huge turn. They're starting to drag airplanes out of the way for the emergency pull forward to clear the landing area. And the bosun says, he's talking on the mouse, and he's got his hand on my shoulder, he's yelling into my ear. He says, A-6 partial ejection, and that's all he says. And I said, okay, let's see. BN's gone. Canopy's either smashed or gone. Pilot's flying the airplane, probably can't hear. And then he talks in the mouse, flips it up and leans in and says, the BN's still with the airplane, his feet are in the cockpit. And I went, I have this picture of like the BN flopping along the outside of the airplane, you know, just like, how does that happen that he's in the airplane, his feet are in the cockpit, nothing else. So we're running over from the forewire to the LSO platform. There's a young LSO trainee who's jumping up and down like, Nasty, thank God you're here. Everybody from the Admiral on down has called me to see if I can wave this airplane. And he's like apoplectic. And I go, okay, you know, I got it. I take, there's nobody else up there. I asked, he says, do you want me to back you up? And I said, no, stand over there. I want you to stare at the foul deck, clear deck light and just tell me if it goes foul. Once you say clear deck, just keep going clear deck, because I'm not going to look at it. And I drag the pickle, the wave off switch and my phone, and I go out about 10 feet into the landing area, and I start looking up, you know, over to the right side of the wake, which would be to the left if you're approaching the carrier from the airplane. And I see this A-6 angling over towards the wake, and I can still picture it. The wake is kind of arcing off like that, and he's over here. Ship's still in this huge left turn. So, you know, he's getting closer. He's trying to cross the wake. The ship's turning, and I start talking to him about where he is and start thinking about how do I get the winds to where I want him and steady up the ship, because he can't land on a turning ship. And so I recognize my position right there. I'm going to talk to the pilot. I'm going to talk to the captain. This is non-standard. There is no recovery bulletin for A-6 partial ejection. Guys, look out the top, do this. I'm going to own this. And so as Mark Baden, the pilot, gets over across the wake and starts to come in, I tell the captain to start steadying at the ship. And I tell him 3 times, and you can hear it on the recording. And I start talking to Mark, okay, keep it coming. You're left a little bit, you know, right for lineup, work it over to center line. Captain, I'll take the wind, steady up. And the ship just, you know, stopped. And I looked up real quick, and I was using the signal flags as the cue for me. And I looked up, and those flags are pointed almost at me. I'm like, okay, that's a lot of crosswind. But now I've accepted the winds. I've steadied the ship out. I've got it. I've got the approach. And now I know I have to keep the power up on the A-6 to avoid him, you know, settling down through because of the burble now, which is very close to the ramp. So the disturbed wind from the crosswind to the right, and it would cause a loss of lift in there. So anyway, Mark, because of all kinds of things, Mark Baden, the pilot, gets He's a little bit right. He's a little bit high, and the airplane is cocked to the right because the parachute's wrapped around the tail. So I'm talking to him about his rudders. I'm talking to him about getting him back to center line. Talking to him about being high.
Okay, bring it back to the left now. Boss, steady out right here. I'll take the wind. 30 knots, slightly left.
Copy.
Okay, flying just a little bit low.
Roger.
Tower, steady out right here. Got 30 knots, slightly port. I'll take the wind, Cap.
Steady up.
Okay, just a little bit low.
Roger.
Just a little bit low. Come left. That paddle's talk down. I got you. Come a little bit left. A little bit of right rudder. A little bit of right rudder. We're on center line. On center line. A little right for lineup. Don't go high. Don't go high. Attitude, attitude, attitude.
And as he crosses the ramp, I'm looking up at the airplane and I see Keith Gallagher's face. And it's his bare face. And he's leaned over looking at me, but his eyes are closed, like his head's leaned over. His arms are splayed back by the wind. And he looks like a cross. And I had this instant feeling right when he goes to land, oh my gosh, I don't want him to stop because he's going to come flying out and get run over. And we're going to watch him get run over. He doesn't because he's held back by the chute, wrapped around the tail, which has pulled him back into the back of his chute. And he's pinned there. And I think he's dead.
Well, you went down to sickbay to see him,
Yeah.
and he had a great line.
Yeah, he did. I found out he's alive. I go down there to see him go running down to sickbay, racing over. The medics are sewing on his arm because he got it cut from the plexiglass here. He's all beat up. He's all bruised. And I lean over the top of the gurney, and I look at him. And he's like, hey, Paddles. He goes, what'd you give my pilot? You know, his squinty eyes, and he's kind of hoarse and stuff from getting blown on. And I said, I gave him an okay underline. Of course he did great. And he goes, well, from where I was, he was high all the way.
The cause of the ejection was later determined to be a fault within the Mark V crew escape system, which was developed by Martin Baker. The model they were flying was the A-6, which was a tanker. And while attempting to clear a stuck float valve in one of the external fuel tanks, Lieutenant Baden tried to correct the issue by applying positive and negative G. And it was during one of the negative G pushaways that the seat misfired and went partially up the rail, enough to send Lieutenant Gallagher through the plexiglass canopy and out into the windstream. Obviously, he was fortunate to survive. For more amazing stories and leadership lessons from Admiral Manazir's career, check out his new book called Learn How to Lead to Win. The Amazon link is in the episode description below. And that'll do it for this episode. If you're not already a subscriber, click the button and ring the bell so you don't miss anything going forward. If you'd like to help support the channel, please consider using the super thanks, the heart icon below, or become a patron at patreon.com/wardcarroll. In the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.